Hello, hi. So I am back and it is day 31 of VEDA. I did it. Yay. Woohoo. Okay, I'm done. So I vlogged every day in August. I learned a lot. Before I do my story time, just a quick recap of what I learned this month. So I learned that I think it's the teaching where I've had to kind of talk for extended periods of time for class and things like that. And I have gotten really good at talking for a really long time, but I'm less good at talking for a short period of time. So I need to practice that. So I'm going to work on that. I learned that I still enjoy doing videos. I found some different topics that I like talking about. And so it's been pretty cool. And so I definitely will be continuing to post. It will not be every day. The next everyday posting thing I might do is Halloween, where I might do like a deep dive into horror and scary and stuff. So we'll see. But every day is from now. We're not going to keep this pace. This is not sustainable for sure. But it's been a learning experience. It's been pretty cool. So I've learned a lot. And now into my story time. So just want to tell a quick story about when I had a good friend who broke up with me, who essentially ghosted me. So, you know, people are always talking about dating and relationships and all of that stuff and being ghosted when you're like trying to date somebody, and that is painful and, you know, that's frustrating and all of that. But imagine being ghosted by someone who you have been friends with since high school, and like went from being like cool in high school to being closer after high school to being like road dogs. Like we would go out and like hang out and like would be out and about and knew a lot about each other's lives and been at each other's houses. Like it was very much I wouldn't necessarily say a best friend, but definitely if we had stayed friends, we were headed down that path. We were definitely in kind of that's my good friend, that's my homie territory. And so in my early 20s, like 2021, this was the friend where when I kind of first started going out and experiencing the adult nightlife was with me. She was a fellow dancer. By dancer, I say someone who likes to go out and dance, because you know you have those friends that like to go out and look cute. You have those friends that like to go out and meet guys, who like to go out and post up at the bar, or meet people for you know, dating purposes or rendezvous, whatever that may be. And you have people that like to go out just to say they were out. We were the people that like to go out and dance and have a good time. And if, you know, the meeting of people and looking cute, and if all of that happened in tandem, then it was a multiply exciting and fun night. But for the most part, it was like we would determine where we're going to go based on the DJ and the music quality, because it's like, okay, or we would go to certain places who had certain types of music. So it's like, all right, well, we feeling the night, we want to go. There was this one club in Atlanta in the 90s. If you were in Atlanta in the 90s, or not even the 90s, I can't say the 90s because I was like 21 in like 99, 2000. So really like late 90s, early 2000s. If you were in Atlanta, kind of out and about, and the age where you might be out and about and, you know, footloose and fancy free, there was a club called Esso. Good Lord, it just skipped my mind that fast. It's called Club Esso. And this was one of my favorite clubs, not because it was particularly fantastic, even though it was fun. I liked it because it had 3 levels, and on each level there was a different type of music. And this was a time where that didn't happen, where you would go to clubs and it's like, once you go to the club, this is what you're listening to for the night. There was no variety. There was no switch up as far as like general genre. So like if you go to a hip hop club, it's hip hop all night. And then, you know, as it gets a little bit later, they might throw on some reggae. They might throw on an R&B song at the end of the night as a way to make you leave. But for the most part, it's gonna be hip hop. If you go to a reggae club, it's gonna be reggae. Now, reggae runs the gamut, or really I'll say island Caribbean music, West Indian. I'll say West Indian because it's different when you go to like a Latin club, a Latinx club. Caribbean club, West Indian, you got reggae, you got soca calypso, possibly, not always, possibly, but you'll have like reggae, you have dancehall, roots reggae. That's what you would listen to for the night. So the variety, it was pretty genred. So to have a place where you had 3 levels and you could have basically 3 distinct experiences on those levels was really fantastic. And so we went there a lot, and like, me and my friends were, like I said, we would like to go out and dance, and really this just became kind of, birds of a feather type of situation. We'd like to go out and dance and like would shut it down. So we would be there until the lights come on, or until almost when the lights come on. And just because we would be on the dance floor dancing, if the DJ is good, we're out there, we're having a good time. It's, we're dancing, all of that. So after all that exposition talking about nightlife, because it was a good time. This was a friend who I, early 20s, out in the streets, experiencing life as a new grown up, because 21, 22, like, just being able to drink officially outside. You are, in these situations where you're meeting different types of people, different ages. I quickly realized I like to go to clubs that required a dress code, because people just kind of acted a little bit differently than the clubs that didn't. And really it was more of just kind of people at clubs that didn't have a dress code. It was just a little bit more relaxed, and I just didn't, the vibe, I was bougie. It just is what it is. So, we would go to all the clubs, the parties. It was a good time, have a good time. And it went on, 22, 23, 24, like mid 20s. And it was very interesting because we were like tight and out and about, but I started to notice little things about this friend that kind of gave me pause. But when you're that age, you don't really, I've always had multiple friend groups. So I think that would maybe insulate me from making a decision to maybe end a friendship or platonic relationship, because it's like, well, I don't really have to hang out with that person all the time, or I just wasn't. And so things might come up and I may or may not kind of call them out or notice them and try to make and move on them. So I noticed when, we would do a friend group join, where it's like we would have our separate friend groups and we would all get together for a birthday or some type of celebration. She would make like little comments like, y'all, like if me and her, people who were deemed her friends, seem like we were getting along too well. And it would always be in jest, like, oh, y'all try to be friends, like y'all can't be friends, y'all are my friends, y'all not each other's friends. And it would always be said in jest, but there's truth in jest. So those things started to happen. We had similar kind of professional interests. And so I would be talking about, the things that I was doing, kind of trying to figure things out and work around. And she would always ask me like, how did you do that? Like, and she always made it seem like I was like some unique individual who was doing these special things, and I was always like, no, all I did was find this resource and then just took advantage of it. Like, we both went to college, we had resources at our colleges, so I would say all you have to do is find this organization, you can go to a meeting and join and blah blah blah. And I would give her basically the things that I was doing. I would say I would do a little bit of research and say, oh, here's one that works for you, you should check it out. They have student for free, or students can come reduced, you can go, blah blah blah. So I would say, I'm not doing anything particularly special, here is what I'm doing, you can do it too, so we can both get our careers together. And so that it kind of turned into me constantly saying that all the time. And I am the cheerleader, so I want people to be successful. And it's like, because I'm like, well, I'm not doing anything special, we both can do this, so here's the information, run it, like do it, thrive, flourish. And so I definitely started to get the feeling that there was some resentment, because I was always like, you can do this, and she was like, nah, can I? And then so we would have those conversations. And then I think what to me ended up maybe being the straw, or kind of the final straw, that I didn't realize it until after I was ghosted, was I had met a guy, and he was a little older, so it was kind of my first time meeting someone who was, in my opinion, a grown man. when you're 21, you're easily impressed. So it was that. So, you know, we had met and we had kind of gone out a little bit, and I was like, well, he's cool, but you know, I met him out. And so when I would go to kind of the park, because he was out and about, we were out and about. And so we had kind of hung out a little bit, but then things kind of started to fade out. And so I would still see him out and about. And so you know how that goes when you might have gone out with someone a few times and it was cool, but like you guys aren't pursuing anything per se, but that doesn't mean they don't still think you're cute. You're out looking cute, they're out looking cute, so you see each other at the club and you're looking at them, they're looking at you, you dancing near each other, like all of that stuff was happening. But then I think we were out with another friend, and no, I wasn't out. She had gone out with another friend. Like I said, we had friend groups that were separate, but we also had kind of people in common that we knew. And so she had gone out with another friend or another group of friends, I think, and had seen him out because, again, we were out in the streets. He was out in the streets, kicking it in the club, doing our young early 20s thing. And he had seen her and he had tried to talk to her, and she had given him her number. And I remember, you know, I have a firm, and I'm actually very vocal about this with like friends. It's like, so we don't, you know, this ain't the Snoop Dogg. It ain't no fun if the homies can't have none. Like, we don't do that here, and not in my friend groups. I know there are friend groups that do that. I don't have those. And so I'm pretty sure, like, I have had conversations with pretty much all of my friends along those lines to some degree. It's like, we don't do that. We, you know, it's important to kind of set those clear boundaries, and we typically wouldn't like the same type of guy. And I think that would happen with me with a lot of my friend groups, where we just kind of had such vastly different tastes that it didn't become a huge issue. But even if it did at any point, it would be like, oh, you trying to, okay, cool, you got it. I'll just be cute until I meet someone else. And so that would be the approach. And hearing that she had given him her number, which I thought was trash for various reasons, mainly because when I had met him, we were together. Like, she and I were out, and when I met him, so she knew that we had met. She knew the details of us hanging out and kind of what had happened, what didn't happen, what things were, and so this was all still fairly fresh. When he tried to talk to her, she gave him her number. So I thought that was, you know, that let me know he was trash, which was like, oh, okay, so it's a no for me to consider you for anything beyond, you know, just someone from my past. But then I'm looking at her, I'm like, I thought we were friends. You know, why would that happen? Now, I never asked her about it because it was kind of told to me by another friend who I don't even remember if she was kind of on some, let me tell you what she did. I think it was more so, oh, we saw him, he tried to talk to so-and-so, and I was like, what? And so that was kind of, I think, the straw. And for me, that definitely was a shift. But even then, I'm not one to break up with friends. Like, it takes a lot. But I know around that time, that's when I kind of essentially was ghosted. Like, stop hanging out, stop answering calls, stop kind of talking. And you know, this was in the early 2000s, so it's like we had cell phones, but not really. We really didn't have cell phones like that. You know, people had them, they were far and few between. You know, if you're out and about, you were out and about. So there wasn't like a whole, like, I'm texting and I'm calling. Like, it was just, we were talking, we were hanging out, and then I think I might have reached out about going out. She never responded, and never called me back, and it was just kind of like things fizzled, because again, we always had different friend groups. So it wasn't so much that I was kind of abandoned and just didn't have any friends, but it was just, I had this one friend, we had this really solid friendship, and then I didn't. And that was hurtful. Like, it took me some years, a lot of years, to get over that. And I don't really know that I am 100% over it, because we never talked about it. We just kind of, you know, she stopped talking to me, and then we lost contact, because when life moves forward, especially when you're in your early 20s and trying to figure stuff out, you know, if someone drops out of your sphere, then it's very easy to kind of lose track of them, especially when you don't have social media in a real way. Like, you know, there was MySpace, Black Planet, College Club, shout out early 2000s social media platforms. But you know, she wasn't necessarily the most, she wasn't like a tech person. Like have always been a digital native, but all of my friends are not. So while, you know, I was on those platforms, I don't know that she was necessarily, but I do remember it had to be like early 30s, when everybody kind of started hopping on Facebook, and I started, you know, noticing that I was getting more friend requests from people that I went to high school with, and like I said, went to high school together. And then I remember, I think we ended up kind of, you know, liking each other, becoming friends on Facebook, and then I remember seeing her out like at the grocery store, like some random store, not like not at a club, but like out at a, you know, life place. And I was thinking, like, I don't really know how I feel, but you know what? It's bygones. This is someone who did not want to be in my life. And so she removed herself from my life. It hurt my feelings, but I have grown. I have gone through so many other things in that time. And this is, you know, ultimately I have fond memories and, oh, for the most part, positive feelings, because it wasn't like things got bad or negative or scary. Like they just faded. Aside from those little things I pointed out, but those are things, like I said, I didn't realize until afterwards. So definitely was in hindsight. And so I say all this somewhat lengthy story to say that it always bothers me when people put so much emphasis on romantic relationships, because while those are important, and you know, if you want to be partnered romantically, you should, and you have to think about what that looks like for your life. But I have always, as an only child who has essentially built her sibling family externally, is kind of how I look at it. Like, my friends become my friends, and we just get so close where it's like either we're damn near related to a degree. Like, we just have known each other for so long. There is no separation. We're just gonna know each other and be in each other's lives. And if it changes, it changes. But regardless, you're just a person in my life. Like, those are kind of how I pick up friendships. And so, as someone who does that, it was just, I definitely see the value in having platonic friendships, especially platonic same-sex friendships. So people who have a similar lived experience to you, whatever that means. So for me, it's about having, you know, really solid femme friendships, and, you know, nurturing those and having those connections, because that type of a connection is not one, it's going to be different from the connections I might have with guys who I'm friends with. It just will be a different kind of connection, and I'm a legitimate friends, not friends. No. If we're friends, then you're the homie or somebody I'm kicking it with. I'm not calling you my friend. So if I say my friend, then you are a true friend of mine. And the friendships with guys that I have are different than the ones with my fellow femme individuals. And I say femme, but for the most part, my friendships are with cis Black women. And I've definitely expanded that over the years, which I'll talk about in another video, because that's a whole other story. But I would, I love diversifying my friend group, because it just allows me to, you know, get to know different types of people on a truly intimate level. And I think your platonic friendships can, at least some of them should have a level of intimacy, because it's something that you won't necessarily get from your romantic relationship or your romantic partner. And it's important that you don't put all of that on that person anyway. That's not fair. And so, because I'm someone who always thinks that platonic relationships are really important, it just always saddens me when I see people put so much emphasis on romantic relationships. And so I think we should not treat our platonic friendships like throwaway relationships. We should treat them like relationships that we cultivate, that we maintain, that we do the work to keep going. But also that, you know, we allow to morph, grow, and change as we grow and change. So that was an early friendship that ended for me. I've had others ended for reasons, like for maybe reason, whatever other situations, but that one was one I think that hurt the most. No, it wasn't the one that hurt the most. That was one that hurt a lot, because I definitely have had one. I had one in particular that hurt more than that for various reasons. And I might talk about that one, not sure, but definitely wanted to kind of tell that story, because I think people are very cavalier about their friendships, and I think that you should not be, and they should be respected, and they should be revered, and they should be treated with the same level of care that you treat your romantic relationships, because they're all very important and they all feed a different part of you as a person. So that's my story time for VEDA day 31. I'm very excited. I'm about to get off of here, and what time is it? Oh, 8:02. It's time for me to get on Instagram Live so I could look at the Monica versus Brandy, or Brandy versus Monica versus. And I actually don't have a favorite. I love both of them for different reasons. And so I'm just there for the music and the nostalgia. But what are your thoughts? I know I've shared a video about friendship before and kind of talked about it in the past, but have you ever had a friend break up with you? Have you ever broken up with a friend? If so, why? Were you able to kind of reconcile and, get back together? Or were you able to kind of come to a new, level of platonic relationship, or a level of relationship where maybe you weren't as close as you were before, but you're still able to kind of be cool and be in each other's lives? Or is it a situation where you're just like, you know what, you're a no for me, keep it pushing? Like, what was your experience? Or did your friendships just kind of fall by the wayside by virtue of life? I'm curious, share your thoughts. And if you don't mind, I'm curious when that happened. I often have, when I lost friends, it was typically in my college, definitely, but that was a whole other thing. But definitely like 20s time was where like I lost friends. And then I learned about friend types. So, and kind of how friends show up in your life and what that means. But what are your thoughts? What is your experience? Have you lost a friend? Have you had a friend break up with you? Have you broken up with a friend? What made you decide? Share your experience and share your story time in the comments. I would like to read them and chat with you about them. And so I'm going to go and move on with my evening and enjoy some Monica and Brandy, or Brandy and Monica, on IG stories, but IG live. But I want to hear your thoughts. And I will be back. Not every day, but definitely will be back. So I definitely look forward to the next time that we can talk again. Bye.